you are live.
Great, all right. Ms. Stevens, will you call the roll?
Mr. Anderson,
Here.
Ms. Capel,
Here.
Mr. McDade,
Here.
Ms. McNabb,
Here.
Ms. Mumford,
Here.
Mr. Norton, Mr. O'Connell,
Here.
Ms. Ray,
Here.
and Ms. Stubblefield.
Here.
You have a quorum.
All right, has everybody reviewed the October minutes for approval?
Yes.
Yep.
Cool. Any motion to approve?
I make a motion.
Second? Second. All right.
Mr. Anderson,
Pardon me?
the
We're
minutes,
voting on the minutes.
do you just wanna do it by acclamation? Anybody? Any no's?
All in favor? Aye.
Okay.
All right, are there any citizens' comments? Do you wanna do, so we'll also have public hearing, do you wanna do both? Or,
Are you talking about affordable housing?
Yes, shall I just do it now or wait?
Just wait.
What time?
okay. All right, new business, affordable housing, so
Okay.
are we gonna
I'm gonna go
do-
over the packet a little bit and tell you where we are.
Okay.
And what's going on tonight. So there was one email that's been sent to me about affordable housing since your last meeting, and that's what was included in your packet today. And we're supposed to have a speaker today, and I keep getting ghosted, y'all. Nobody wants to talk about affordable housing the right people don't want to talk about affordable housing on Folly Beach. So we don't have a speaker today, but I did want to just do a little recap of where we are in the process. And you have some survey results there that we will talk about. So last month, y'all heard the marsh mitigation and the replanting and the accessory unit rentals and trees. And all that went back to council, but I had COVID. So that the mayor postponed it. So I'm gonna give y'all's report to council at their December meeting now. And then also in that November meeting, they remanded two ordinance to you. One is the gravel, that's the same topic, new ordinance about it. And then the second is a 25-foot setback from the perpetual easement line. And that's on the ocean side, the dune management area. Go to the website that has all of these surveys. They can email me or show up tonight, Kyle's here, or next week, or next month, January 6th. So please spread the word. Please help get the word out. So what we can talk about today, we got a request from someone about participating, so this is what a resident suggested, to participate in county's affordable housing programs. And in the last week, there was a newspaper article about their land acquisition fund. The county, Charleston County, used 1.6 million of ARPA funding to help this land fund this land acquisition fund, which is only to be used to purchase property that will then be used for affordable housing. It's a grant program, and the ARPA money that they use, this 1.6 million, is one-time fund. That's already been claimed. There's 4 projects that's going to. In the future, if the county wanted to continue this, they'd have to put up the money for it. Regardless of how it's funded, it is a grant program that city staffers and this county staffers and this Charleston Development Corporation take in the grant applications and decide where the money, where it goes, what project is worthy. And so if the city of Folly Beach were to contribute financially to this, we would not have any say in where that money would go.
it wouldn't be a situation where Folly applied for the grant?
So that's the second part. So who can apply for the grant is nonprofits and for-profits who have demonstrated that they have created affordable housing. So you have to show 2 affordable housing projects that have been completed within the last 5 years to apply for it to be considered.
So no.
And so we couldn't apply for it either.
So there's no other county program that we know of that's accessible to
I'm
us?
trying to get in touch with this guy,
That was supposed to speak.
not the one that's supposed to speak, the guy who's in charge of this Charleston redevelopment company about that, to ask if he has any other ideas. So is there any other opportunity for us to join with the county? So that's my question for him when I talk to him. But for this one, for the land acquisition grant fund, it's not feasible for, it's just doesn't work for what we're looking to do.
And whoever wrote in requesting more information about how we can use or opt-in for county-related projects like that, you would then respond back with that
So
exact.
I've been asked to write a memo to council, and I'll share that with y'all, that has the information, but it's what I just told you.
Right.
But what's the question?
But whoever wrote in inquiring about that, they'll get an email back kind of explaining what you just,
Whatever the citizen was that brought the ARBA idea.
I'm sure they will. I have not been in touch with this person, so.
So that's off the table though, since we haven't created 2 initiatives yet, and if we contribute to it, then we can't be a part of it anyway, right?
And this is, the organization, this is one of those nonprofit joint projects that I brought up the first day, the Palmetto Community Land something, PC. That's who is in charge of administrating this.
So if somebody owns a home
Mhm.
and they rent it for less than comparable, are they available for this grant? In other words, if somebody owns a home and let's say they rent it for $1,000, but the going rate for the same type home is $1,500. Are they available for this?
Not for this one. This is only for acquiring properties. So if the home were for sale and you were gonna buy it to turn it into long-term rentals, that's the only time that this land acquisition grant fund would be available.
And it's not available to individuals, just, who'd you say it was available to? Nonprofits and.
To nonprofits and for-profits that can demonstrate that they can handle an affordable housing, construction of an affordable housing project.
I guess what, just to tag on what he was saying, if an individual currently already provides affordable housing on Folly, they own a property here, and they wanted to buy one that's for sale and turn it into more affordable housing, would they be able to apply for this?
But this money's already been claimed, right?
This money's already been claimed.
Oh,
$1.6
they have to
million has
fund
already
it,
been
yeah.
claimed. But if it were to be funded in the future, it would have to be, I don't, what's that, who?
Yeah, I was just thinking of an individual, that if an individual
Not
already
if
was.
they already own the property, only if they were trying to
It
acquire
doesn't matter. It sounds like there's no money in there right now anyway.
There's no money in it right
Okay.
now, anyway. That's, yeah, there might be in the future, but there's not right now.
But I'm
So-
assuming I'm assuming there's companies that we could work with to get into that program, right? If it ever gets funded again?
Mhm.
Like there's contractors that do this full-time,
We would
right?
have to partner.
We would just have to partner with them, would be the
Someone.
only way to get in
Mm,
to the cycle.
Somebody who had already, yes,
Okay.
successfully, created
All right.
the housing. Yeah,
And
but
you-
not as a city, we can't, or not
Correct.
right now,
Yeah.
because we,
So it could be used not just to purchase land, but also existing properties if it's used as affordable housing
mhm.
as well. So
And there's a 20-year deed restriction on that too.
deed restriction, okay, so that's like an automatic, okay.
Yeah, if you're part of the program,
That's
it's
part of
20 years of affordable housing.
Right, okay.
Yeah. So that's the question number one. Number two, there's another program I wanted to tell you about that I think we've talked about this, but this is something Councilmember Bazell brought up, the lease to locals. And this is, I was supposed to have a conversation with someone today that didn't happen because I had a couple more questions that I wanted to be able to answer for you, but here's the broad overview of what it is. This is a program that offers cash incentives to homeowners to offer long-term rentals in resort towns, because the other resort towns are facing the same thing. People who can afford to have a second house is just sitting there and not contributing to the housing supply. It's like Lake
Sounds
Tahoe.
perfect.
Yeah, Lake Tahoe, Breckenridge, these kind of places. So they have a income limit. Generally, it's the tenant can make up to 125% of the area median income. The tenant must work in the town wherever this is being applied, and the home must be in the town. And the qualifications, either I've seen, because I've just toured around a little bit on the websites, is either a new rental completely, or there was no long-term rental in the last 18 months, to make sure that you're incentivizing people to actually create new. They can't already have a long-term rental and qualify for this program. Some require you to have a currently licensed STR that you're then giving up to turn into, have a long-term rental. But the cash, it begins at $2,000 per tenant and is paid to the homeowner.
Per year,
It's one time
one time.
thing. So once you've converted it to affordable housing, that one time it's off the table because then you don't qualify for the not having done it for the last 18 months or last year, whatever it is. There's one town called Mammoth Lake, California, that had an $18,000 subsidy to one person because they had 4 bedrooms and whatever their price per bedroom was. So it is generous amount of money, which means it's expensive too.
Are they individual local programs, or is that like one nonprofit, or?
Lease to Locals is one program that is that different cities are doing and applying.
Okay, so they're
They-
running the program.
It's funded
The city's
locally
running the
or-
program.
The city gets to say how much the income is, how much the grant is. Like, they get to have all of the qualifications are set by the city.
But
the
Lease to
city's not
Locals is
funding it?
providing the money for it?
Not providing money, no. The cities themselves are providing the money. They're administering the program, basically. So they're connecting the people who are looking for long-term housing.
Better than what we have now. That's a good idea.
It is, it's a really cool idea, and so I should be in touch with that person soon, and hopefully I'll have more details about that. One other thing is they do limit the maximum that you can rent the place for. All of them did say you can't rent higher than a certain amount, 3,500 in general.
But we would be able to, if we participate in that, the city can set the limit, because like 3,500 is not gonna help anybody here, right? But it would, so we would be able to kind of
I
ask for what we
believe so.
think our limit needs to be.
I believe so, because it seems to be customized in every town that I've looked at. So then the only other thing to talk about, we'll have the public hearing and hear from people, and then you have some survey results under your agendas. There's only about 12 people, I think, that we've heard back from so far. So take a look at that, and once we have more, I will give it all to you electronically. This is just what we had for today, the people who had responded. And so I was gonna go over a little bit of what I've seen to point out, just to give y'all maybe where to look. There's 3 different packets. This gets really confusing. We have 6 different surveys, but only 3 of them have answers so far. So the first one you have was full-time property owners, and we did get about 8 people respond to that one. On page 3, I think this is actually the only real direction or anything, is that yes, 75% of people think that the city should be exploring options for affordable housing. What those options should be are all over the board, you'll see on page 4. But I did want to point out on page 7, at the very top, where you see Charleston County teachers, I think it's easy to miss that when you're looking through here. So these are people who offered, who else should this apply to? We're talking about first responders, city employees, people, anyone who lives on Folly. Somebody mentioned teachers specifically, which I don't think we've really talked about here.
City already, yeah, I mean, they may have changed it since I heard about it, but offers $300
Yes,
to a police officer if he wants to stay around the house
right. So-
towards his rent.
Right.
Or
Currently,
fireman.
it's 600 if you live on Folly, or 300 if you live on James Island, and that's for first responders, both cops and firemen. Mhm.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah, that's per month. The second home, vacation homeowners, the second packet here, I think page 7 is just when you do get answers, that's the question. What would you do to rent out your home to long-term rentals? And it doesn't really seem to, I mean, what would it take? I don't, nobody has any answers to that.
With the $600 pay towards that, How much a response have you got?
Those are all filled every month.
Pardon me?
Those are all filled. So we have, the city budgets for $600 stipends. And for the most part, they are always claimed. Okay, that's all I have. You wanna
Okay,
open the,
we're open for public comment. Mr. McFarland, you wanna go first?
Sure. I hope you're gonna give me a few more than 3 minutes on this one, since I'm representing most of the public. John McFarland, I live at 1780 Chelwood Circle in Charleston. I'm a commercial property owner, and we're closing in on 30 years of owning these properties. I've seen a lot of changes in the commercial district. I want to start by answering Mr. McConnell's rhetorical question from the last time I was here. And the question was, who's going to run these rentals? Should the city be doing that? And the other question is, why don't we just raise the salaries $10,000 and call it a day? And I want to answer those to start with. First of all, if we raise the salaries $10,000 or $20,000, I don't think that would still get you in the door. And even if it were $40,000, there's not enough housing on the island for these people, even if we give them all the money. We have to create the housing in some fashion for them. There's just not enough money for them to buy their way in. And the other thing is, who's going to run these rentals? And the short answer is not the city. The city should not be in the rental business. I'm in the rental business. The city doesn't want to be called and say, oh, the water heater's not working, or my toilet's all stuffed up. The city shouldn't be running. Now, it's true, you should look into public-private partnerships. I would say these ones that one of the Jen mentioned, if it's 20 years, why bother? Because after 20 years, you're back in the same old spot. So whatever it is, we have to create some 501c3s that are gonna do this in the long term. In the short term, there's still the low-hanging fruit that I talked about before, that I'm gonna get to in just a second. So I hope I've answered that question. Somebody else has to do it. I'm gonna next say I agree with Ms. Whitmore. In 2017, when I stood here and made a similar proposal to exactly what Ms. Whitmore wrote, she was sitting right there next to the mayor. Now that proposal died. There was no appetite for it at the time because there were no real city council members that spoke up for it. And it died. And I sat down and it was done. And that was in 2017. Now there are people that think that we should do something, and they're behind me. And that's a good thing. And I would also say that a few years ago, somebody told me that on a separate issue, it was too late. Nothing could be done. And I said, I don't believe that ship has sailed. We can do something if we work at it. And it happened. We turned the ship around and we changed the island completely. And it wasn't easy. This is the same way. If this project was simple, it would have been done a long time ago. You have a very difficult job, but at least it's not somebody from the outside. You are a very powerful group, by the way. You don't know how powerful you are until you read this comprehensive guide and figure out all of the things that you can do. And it's an awful lot of things. It's true. You send stuff to the city council, they can say yes, they can say no. But you can work on these things and you can send it to them. Now, last time, I don't want to go over it because most of you heard it, I think there are 3 categories. Workforce housing for public employees, workforce housing for the hospitality, and the average citizen wanting to move here. Let's start with the average citizen. We can't do anything about that. That's market forces. If they can find a place, they'll just have to pay. The second level I want to move up to is workforce housing, or workforce benefits for the hospitality industry. And I think that this is not the right time to do that. However, I am encouraging you to consider parking for workforce housing.
I just want to point one thing out. You're a minute past your 3 minutes, and we're still listening.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I'm halfway through, and I can speed up. We should be able to tell those people that work in the hospitality industry, we're trying. I would suggest to you, you think about some kind of decal. Don't ask me what privileges go with the decal or how the decal will work. I don't really know. I thought about it a couple days ago and I'm giving it to you. At least you would know when you walk around, and then finally you would have a list because people would apply. You'd at least know how many people need parking, and then you could begin working on it just by simply saying, we're going to give you a decal. So that's my idea for workforce housing. Other than that, I want to go back to the primary thing, the low-hanging fruit. And I agree with Spencer. She tagged it just right. We need the pilot program. My suggestion to you, separate from all these other things, and somebody else just last night said, well, we have to do this, 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 and this. And that's true. You're gonna have to do all of it. But the pilot program and finding some housing on the island, I think it's possible. I didn't say it was easy, but I think it's possible. You can, and make a report to the city council and suggest to them that they create a housing commission. You can even craft how the commission is composed. 9 people chose just like you or whatever. And they would create the rules. You create the commission, or you propose the commission to the city council. City council says, okay, and then the commission gets created. The commission figures out how to do the pilot program, and they give it back to the city council saying these are the rules, and the city council does this, they do that, they do whatever. And then you have a commission, and the commission begins trying to figure out how to find those things on the island. Yes, I don't know how many ADUs we can do, but I still feel that there's enough space for two-car garage apartments with something above it for us to make a dent in it. I don't know how many, no one really knows, but that would be a good start. And I think that's one approach you should take on top of everything else. My suggestion, I'm almost done, is a preliminary report to the city saying, why don't you start on this? We would continue working on it. And by the way, the city doesn't have to ask you to do any of this. This is all inside your comprehensive plan, and you can redo or revisit parts of the comprehensive plan anytime there was a major change. And there's been a major change on the island related to rentals. And so you can work on this for as long as you want, in any way you want, by the way. Anyway, that's my suggestion on how to move forward, at least in the short term. Oh, and one last thing, and thank you for your patience. This is a zoning book from 2003. I bought it from the city council for about $3, and I still have it. There's one thing you can add. I have been focusing on single family. I said nothing about the commercial zone. In 2003, there was something in here, I'm gonna need my glasses for this, that has disappeared. We could put it back in. Now they called it tourist home / boarding home rooming house. And it was defined in the section as a residential building occupied by the owner in which appropriate additional facilities are provided for the lodging of paying guests and travelers. We could redo this and allow in the commercial district, once again, group homes. Group homes. It would also open the door for senior housing, something that I think is possible. And so that is another venue that you could use. There are a couple empty lots, and there are some people, maybe even me, that would consider turning one of my properties into a group home. I didn't say it's simple, but you could craft it. It doesn't have to be like a mobile home park, and it doesn't have to be a dump. You can do a good job with it if you plan it properly. And that would open the door up for additional housing. So that's something else to think about. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Did you want to make a public comment? Any other public comments?
Dr. Elko was here earlier, was she gonna speak?
She would talk about the seawall. She'll be back next week, next month.
Okay. I guess that's it then, right? Yeah, are there any commission comments?
Does anybody, do y'all want to talk any more about affordable housing? I mean, just to throw some ideas back and forth, just because you have the time here.
An
And
idea I've been kind of leaning more towards is talking about allowing not multiple houses on one lot, but allowing anywhere on the island, if you have room and septic permitting, duplexes, quads, if the owner also lives there. And they do long-term rental on the rest of the units.
There are several
But,
properties that exist like that right now that seem to be very successful.
I have
and
no
had the
idea
same
how
peop-
you'd split, like,
No, just
well,
mean-
now I can do short-term rental because I live here and it'd be an owner-occupied short-term rental, but it would be for new construction of those
And are you
or
talking about multiple units on one?
Division.
Okay.
like a traditional duplex. That's just something I've been thinking about, that, well, that just makes sense. Your property manager lives on site if it's the owner. You know, you're gonna have a lot less problems for noise that you may have if you have a quad that's a short-term rental or something like that. So I just wanted to throw it out there for consideration. That's
Paula,
all.
I'm very supportive of that too, just in, whether if, as long as environmentally, you know, we could
Mhm.
support it, but I could name two right now, phenomenal human beings that live on this island who do live in their home and provide multiple long-term rentals on their property.
Mhm.
And it's a family, and all of them work on the island, so I'm definitely,
Mhm.
if, as long as environmentally, I've been thinking the same thing, like how do you
Yeah.
use the space we have in a more, you know,
Mhm.
more productive way.
Or use the same lease to locals program to incentivize
Like
current, multi-unit structures to switch over.
One other comment I just wanted to say too is I think that, I know personally, we probably need to get the word out that you can come speak at these meetings more, because we all know a lot of people who have a lot to say, but I also think that they're speaking through us in a lot of ways because there's sensitivity. I mean, there's people who have been long-term renters on the island, have a lot to say and been feeding and sharing their thoughts individually for a long time, but getting up in public and talking isn't necessarily what they want to do. But I know several that plan to come the next time, so hope they do. But the survey is a great way to get that
Yeah,
input
share with
out.
them that they can also
Yeah.
do the survey or email me. They don't have to get up and speak.
Yeah.
They can
like if
also
don't.
say they want Jenna to keep it anonymous, right?
That's
If
true.
they don't wanna.
Oh, yeah.
They can email you and just
Because the
read it.
survey is anonymous right now,
Yeah.
but if they wanted to send an email and say, yeah, I would do
Yeah.
that.
Jenna, trying to think of, because I feel like a lot of it starts with the survey and trying to get that out and trying to get this feedback that we really, really need, you know, in order to make this even worthwhile, you know? So would the city consider, and I don't, would consider maybe doing like a mailer, like a postcard mailer, you know, not with the survey, but hey, here's the survey, here's my email or whatever to send in your thoughts.
We
You
can
know,
do it easily on our water bill.
I wouldn't agree with that.
I think a lot of
I
people
mean,
just
I
have
mean,
auto pay on
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, and you
right?
get it like digitally, like, you know, like I wouldn't get that probably, you know, but like, I don't know, like if that's even, you know, how much it would cost, if it's worthwhile, if we just end up seeing them in the trash at the post office, you know,
Maybe, but hopefully they'd read it first and there'd be like a QR code they could.
Right,
If they
right,
wanted.
if
Okay,
there,
so-
you know, a QR code, put up a thing at the post office too, and, you know, maybe, you know, reach out to, you know, we, as Civic Club, we can certainly send it out to our members, you know, your information, which it goes in the Sandspur, but maybe the Exchange Club, if they have an email group or Fab, you know, and just be like, y'all, this is the moment, you know, and it's all gonna go away if we get 9 responses. You know, it's just, or it's not gonna be worthwhile, right? We're not gonna get these great ideas that, you know, are out there, you know, but this, just to make it start somewhere.
What was the
Yeah.
timeline we put on this? Like, how many months did we decide we were gonna, or do we have a timeline to how long the survey is
think
gonna be
we-
running?
Really have a deadline.
We don't really officially have a deadline. The survey can be open as long as we want it to.
But at
So
some
it'll
point
be
it's
Do you
open
need to get a
through
crunch
through
of
the next meeting at least. To get anything into council's hands before budget, this would need to be wrapped up by like February.
the whole,
What your recommendations for the next year's budget. I mean, you can continue, like Mr. McFarland said, you can continue talking about it as long as you want. That would just be the next, a deadline would be if you want council to appropriate anything for next year.
meeting we have, it's already December, so we have January meeting to make some decisions and get it wrapped up into their hand by February.
So one more
One
meeting?
meeting?
Well, I
If
mean,
we
we
were
can, you can
to
continue.
get it, so
I think
we
that's
could
what I'm
have
hearing.
another
Yeah, I don't think it's, like, it
That's
doesn't
just-
go away.
It doesn't
after-
go away
Right.
after that, you make.
But it might not be funded in this year, is what you're saying.
But going back to what you were saying, you were saying you would prefer it be the traditional,
duplex
Why-
versus
why-
having two.
yeah, what would be a big issue with two, as long as everything could accommodate?
Because
Parking,
it'd be two
septic.
separate structures
Right.
versus one that's probably not gonna create near as much density as filling up the whole lot, was my thought. Maybe I'm wrong, but.
You're saying one property with multiple
One
units and one
duplexes here,
instead
a
of two
regular
buildings.
duplex, yeah.
But duplexes can be separate on Folly.
On Folly, so we have to define it and say it's one building. You can have a little more space maybe for like maximum size, but not above height, something like that.
But what about the properties that might want to participate, but they're already two separate, but they're technically a duplex right now?
They already can.
What's the question?
So what if they, are we talking about going into, giving them permission to build or entering a program of some
Yeah,
sort?
so outside of this, like, say within a few blocks of downtown here, outside of that is residential, single family.
Right.
They can't have a duplex there, so this would be an incentive, I guess, you can have a duplex, but you can only long-term rent the other unit.
I had an interesting conversation with a appraiser that works a lot in the South. And he told me that a hotel, the South Carolina definition of a hotel, it has to have an office and somebody there. And these last 3 hotels that opened don't have that.
We can look into that, certainly.
Okay, I'm gonna look into it legally before the next meeting to find out if that's the truth. Because if it is, these 3 little hotels that opened up are nothing but short-term rentals. Because none of them have an office, and none of them have anybody on site 24 hours.
Okay, we'll look into that. I wanted to go back to here, said QR code. This is one of the ideas I had this morning, for hospitality workers. We're not reaching them, obviously, they don't get the Sandsburg, and they're not on the Facebook right, groups, whatever. So I was gonna take a piece of paper and just cut it by 4 and do a little QR code and hand it to the bartenders and say,
Okay.
will you please give this to the 10 people who are working here today, to just let them, I'll say something like, please
Yeah.
take our
That's a great
survey
idea.
on affordable housing.
Is
So-
this something we
Yeah.
can involve FAB in though, because
Yeah.
the business owners are a part of FAB, they know who lives on the island or who
Mhm.
wants to live on the island, or who,
Mhm.
yeah, I feel like we should really
Yeah, I'll
solicit.
reach out to, the president and ask if he can email it around. Say, we want everyone's input, but we would really love the employees
Yeah,
to fill these out.
What if you put something at Burt's, do you think? I mean, I know it's kind of a,
Would you do it?
what do you mean?
Like if you saw a QR code at Burt's, would you scan it? Cause for me, it'd be a no.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I guess if you knew what it was, or I was just trying to think of capturing people,
Yeah.
but I guess a lot of the folks that probably pass through or, maybe just here for the day or something, probably not.
I think the post office is a good idea. So
Yeah.
I'll
Yeah.
do the same, I'll put the QR code on the post office.
Yeah,
and I think just making it really clear that one of these surveys is for people who work on the island but don't necessarily live on the island right now. Like, that might be confusing if I'm not a Folly resident, so I'm not participating in the survey, or why would I? Then I think we just need to make it really, really clear when, next time we repost it, that, there's a survey for anybody, and even if you don't live on the island, you're just a property owner, even if you don't live on the island, but you work on the island, or you wanna live on the island. Just making
We'll
that
make
kinda
that
clear.
Could you put it on the digital billboard coming in?
Yeah, we can do that.
Not the QR code, because you don't want people scanning it, but just, hey, we want your feedback.
Send them to the website,
Yes.
yeah.
Paint the
And-
QR code on the boat.
It is also, there you go. It is also on the front page of the website. It's The affordable housing page is buried way down in there and hard to find, but if you just go to the front page, there's a scrolling header, and if you just wait a couple of seconds, it will say affordable housing, and you can click there. So it's very easy to find all of this information on the website.
Do you wanna like maybe write the blurb of what, of how you want it to read and include the QR code and everything, and then, you know, maybe, like, I can send it to all of Civic Club, and then maybe we can send that to the FAB president, we can send that to Exchange Club, so that we're sharing the exact same
Yeah.
information, and we've got the right email addresses, and everything's going out, you know, and whatever, you know, if you do a mailer or whatever, or just so that, you know, we're all speaking from the same script.
Right,
Because that can be confusing, I think, too, and what gets shared may not have the right info, and,
Right.
you know, and even the admins of some of these Facebook groups too, you know, just so that we're just, because I think a lot of times that's when people get lost. They're like, well, I didn't see that part of it, you know, and just try to keep it all in a box or
Yeah.
something.
Let me email all of y'all with the link to the code and some language, and then share as you see.
Okay, yeah.
If you think
yeah.
about the demographics of the hospitality industry, the truth is, we're probably just need to be posting on Instagram and hanging in a drop-in. And, I mean, I'm kidding and I'm not kidding, but I mean, it needs to be an influencer type of thing where the right core people are passing the word to the rest of the F&B community. And I think some of us, we probably know some of them are, and I know I'll do what I can to bring them in, but
And handing it out and making that, you know,
Pass it around.
and, you know, I think that could be worthwhile, you know.
I think
I
you'll
think
see
so.
some traction.
Yeah,
if we
I
do
think
that.
so, and maybe, you know, maybe not on a Friday or something, but, you know, hey, I don't know.
Or if we could get the business owners to ask their managers to hand them out and say, will you complete this before you leave your shift today?
Right.
I think getting FAB involved and behind this is really important.
Okay, are you asking any, or are we asking any city employees their
Yes.
thoughts on it too?
Yes, the city employees
Public
are
safety
employees
and-
in the city, and so, yes, I'm
Are
sure.
they,
I know one person, we got one response at 4 o'clock today from a city employee.
can we get the police chief to
Yeah.
ask all his folks?
Yeah, absolutely. Mhm.
Anything else where, like, big groups we need to access that y'all can think of?
What number of respondents are we looking for to make this worthwhile?
Well,
Because we have 8.
it's, right,
Out of
it's never gonna
2,300?
be statistically accurate. I mean, you know, we're not looking to analyze this from a statistical perspective. It's just like talking to your neighbors to get feedback. So we use the term survey, and we will aggregate all of this for you. But I don't think it's necessarily gonna say, well, we think 85% of the respondents said this, therefore we have a mandate to do this. I don't think that's what you're going for, because we're not gonna get
I
this.
mean, if I was
kind of
reading
numbers.
data that came from 300 people,
Right,
it'd be worthwhile, but 8, I mean,
I feel like
Right.
50 would be
Just-
great.
50 would be great.
Yeah, I think
if
50
we
would
got that. But even with 50, it's not statistically,
No.
it's not relevant.
Well, and I mean,
This
if you
is
think
just like talking to your neighbors, and this is just a tool to be able to have your neighbors be able to bring their opinions to all of the.
But at least your
the commission.
respondents would be people that care to respond,
Yeah.
that care about the issue, so.
And also, if you look at like a city council meeting, when there is public comment, if 5 people get up and say something similar, everybody's listening. If 10 people get up and say something, you know, I think council members are probably like, okay, overwhelmingly, we got 10 people that came to speak. So I don't know what the right number is either, to be honest, but I do think 8's not, obviously not enough, and we need to give it more time and do all the things we're talking about, getting more involvement and engagement in it. But if we had 20 people show up at public comment, you know,
That would be.
we would think it was fantastic, but having 20 responses on a survey doesn't sound so good,
Mhm.
you know?
Yeah, no, this is, we'll have more. Yeah, we'll get there.
For the January meeting, are we gonna have a preliminary proposed budget for 25?
No, because council is gonna be in charge of the budgeting, so this is just gonna be your recommendations without any
Okay.
budget
So, assuming the conversation around the duplex separate will take some time, the real thing is, do we wanna recommend any more incremental funding to at least the city workers in the 25 budget, cause that's on the clock. So we probably need to spend a fair amount of the meeting in January really looking at those numbers and the proposed budget and what can council afford in the budget for 25. And is it, we're just stuck with what we have now, or is there an opportunity to say, let's double it and see what that does to turnover, and let's do some quick modeling on math and say, okay, if we 2x the amount for the first responders, if that gives us a 25% reduction in turnover next year at $6,000 in training, does that math pencil and balance? That's the short-term math we need to do for the 25 budget, in my opinion.
Sure, okay.
While we look at longer-term options that are gonna take some discussion and voting and where and what type, that's gonna take months.
I'll break that out and have it as a separate line on the agenda in January to
Yeah.
talk about.
If we were
more
to
fully.
make a recommendation, would we be recommending how much dollar number, or would we just saying we recommend a,
I think you could.
Significant increase,
Yeah, I
or-
think it would be just an increase.
okay.
Significant
But that's all
increase.
we can ever do is recommend to the
Correct.
council.
Correct.
Correct.
Jeff, Connie, is there, I know there's obviously dollars for the $600 a month program already there. Is there another, in the proposed budget that council worked on some time ago, is there already are there already housing initiative dollars set aside? We just don't know what we're doing with them yet, or is it truly just the dollars?
I
feel like-
think so.
That was what I was kind of alluding to. Do we want to recommend, if nothing more, to put more money in there to see if we see a corresponding reduction in turnover that nets even and says, hey, this is working at a higher dollar amount, maybe for 26, we take another shot at it. And the way I've traditionally done this is you just do a sensitivity of 25%, 50, 75% reduction in turnover. And those funds that we have to invest in training all the first responders and orientation, you net that out with what you propose the increase is. And then give city council a sensitivity analysis at some proposed rates, and then let them figure what they think will work. But it's just a math equation.
How do you do that with your pen?
I don't know. I don't think about it. It just happens.
All right, any other affordable housing ideas, thoughts, questions you have that we still want answered besides,
I would like to see the people that are gonna come speak be as prepared as this gentleman was when he the first guy that stood up.
I don't know how to mandate that.
We want to hear from everybody.
They just need to study what they're gonna bring before us, and not just come in and herd something off the street.
I still don't understand pilot program when you're talking about a building an actual,
yeah, I don't think.
I don't understand
That's
the
just not the right
verbiage
word.
pilot.
You're talking about in the.
But once it's done, in
Correct.
terms of,
I guess if it's a pilot, it means we're only gonna allow 4 of these to see how it goes.
Right,
And-
right.
It might not be
Yeah,
all
I agree with you, I don't think it's either do it or don't. There's not-
I mean, I think what she's suggesting is this year, let's do it for a limited period of time, allowing these people to build it. Yeah, once it's built, it would be built. and
Yeah, it's not exactly a
forever.
pilot anymore.
Right, but.
But pilot being, we're not trying to do a bunch of these, we're seeing
Right.
how one goes.
It's
or
not
two
every
goes.
property on the island.
and when we were discussing the survey, one of my questions was, what if nobody takes this survey? Is this gonna hurt us? Is it gonna come back to haunt us or
I don't
bite
think
us?
it's gonna
But
hurt you, because this is just another tool to gather information. You're
Right.
talking to your neighbors right now. I mean, that's, that, you're thinking about it, you know who the people are on the island that can benefit from this. Like, that's the conversations that we're just trying to put in a survey to have also. So I don't get discouraged if you don't have responses.
can I
from the survey.
respond
There will be
to,
more, there will be more.
There'll be more.
There will be more.
can I gain clarification on one of John's, comments?
Yeah.
Is now the time?
You mean you wanna ask him something?
Yeah,
The-
'cause I
the
took
chair-
some
The
notes.
chair can bring him back
Yeah,
up.
okay.
yeah, we
We're
should
good.
ask him questions.
So just to summarize what this is kind of what notes I took. You separated it into workforce for the public, hospitality, and the average citizen.
Well, it's city employees.
I consider the issue at 3 different levels.
Right.
The first level and the highest priority is housing for city employees, both. That's the top level, and I think that should be the priority. The second level is workforce, is to help the hospitality workers. And I don't think we can provide housing, but we can maybe begin working on parking for them. And
Okay.
then the third level is just the average citizen that lives someplace that just wants to live
Right,
on
so
Folly.
you're just saying, yeah, no to the average citizen, not the right time for workforce.
John, this
Just
is
in
opinion.
terms of
Yeah, I don't think
parking, right.
the city can do it all, and
So your suggestion ultimately, in a nutshell,
The reason I
was
picked-
let's consider parking for workforce housing. That's kind of what I
Yeah.
heard, just parking for workforce
You're
Yes.
housing.
saying, you're saying for, if you're trying to prioritize to get going
And
with
since
it.
you've called me, I wanted to say, the reason we talk about a pilot program is because I don't think the city council has the desire to open the door for what you are referring to. So it's a way to ease the city into doubling down on density. In the long run, it would be okay if we allowed a second ADU. And I'm not opposed to that. I just don't think the city council would go for it if you said we just want to open the door completely, which is why I am pushing a pilot. Yeah, the pilot would just be for city employees, but it opens the door. If it's successful, then you could say, well, what about this, what about that? That's why I'm suggesting a pilot as opposed to what you're suggesting. Now, if you can get 4 city council members to agree with you, I'd be happy to open the door completely, then you wouldn't need a planning commission. All you'd need is to make sure that those units, people don't cheat after they get built.
Well, I was
And you're
actually
suggesting that the planning commission now
focused.
develop a housing commission to do this, not us?
I think so.
No, I think the planning commission
Yeah, that's what we're here.
can do it. I mean,
Maybe
that's
to,
our- that's our
maybe to
job.
manage a pilot later.
We don't need another commission.
I'm just trying to understand exactly
are you
where you're trying
recommending
to, are
a
you
housing
saying that we
commission for
shouldn't,
this?
or are you saying that we should now
Are
form
you
a
saying we
housing?
should have one that we appoint for the future to manage these ordinances, essentially?
I think as
As it
the city
evolves.
grows, lots of big cities have housing commissions, and I think that would be one way to
To
deal with the
manage
pilot
the-
program. It's true,
We're
you
not a
can do
big
it.
city,
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
you're growing.
but if this council or this commission can do what you're asking,
Yes.
I mean, we're not overburdened
Yeah.
with stuff here,
Yeah.
okay?
I was just trying to get
So I agree with
clarification
you,
of it.
but you've talked more than all of us combined. And so I understand you, but
I didn't, I just needed to know, I just needed
Yeah.
to kind
Well, you
of.
can appreciate your
Absolutely.
input.
Thanks.
Yeah, I appreciate
yes,
that.
I
Do all
do too.
those things.
I've been thinking about it a long time.
And you can also, as a council, you can create your own advisory group and bring in others. You have the power to create one on the side to do that. You don't need a planning commission, that's true.
Yeah, I will say, I don't think anything's off the table. The council members that are here have come to all of these, and they're really invested in finding a way to make this work if it can.
Yeah.
And I think they're open to all
And
possibilities.
I would disagree to some extent related to the surveys. Whether the surveys come in with 8 people or 800, I think this is an important issue, at least for housing for public employees, that you need to move forward with, no matter how many comments you get.
Right.
Have I answered
Thank
that
you,
question?
yeah, thank you.
Sure.
Jen, I have another question for you. Thank you, Jen. So when we get to a point of having some things that we recommend, I keep coming back to the environmental impact of things and just what we can afford. So what would be, if we said, there's a lot of us that like this idea about multiple units on existing properties. What's the next step to get confirmation that it's environmentally feasible on our island? Like, when do we bring in someone to say, at that property here, you're good? I don't know how many septic tanks everybody has, but, you know, like, how do we get that piece of
Is
it?
Charleston, downtown Charleston having any issues? Like,
Well,
are
They
there
don't
any?
have septic.
Oh, yeah, let's, wait, hold on, see,
Well, they're not on septic.
Right.
That's our big environmental issue.
exactly.
And it's gonna be, it's a property by property basis. So
Right.
getting a septic engineer onto that property to look at what's there, and say what the capacity is, then we can't do that. The city
Right.
just cannot figure out how many properties would be able to do that whether they have that septic capacity.
And that worries me. Like, that's just the fact that we're talking about these different ideas and we don't know what our capacity really is.
But we
But
could potentially look at GIS and see how many lots are a half acre or larger that have a single house on them.
Mm.
That'll at least give us some idea of how many potential properties there could be.
Right.
I don't know.
And we have to have
That's a-
resources
Well,
that,
it depends on where the septic is,
Yeah,
and
so
drain
you need a
field, like.
Or
But
just-
it wouldn't be definite, it would just be like, okay, so now we know there's less than 10, or now we
Yeah.
know, oh, there's
well,
potentially.
for anybody
if
to
it
build all
qualified,
the
could be 50, I don't know.
multiple units for short-term rentals that they've done on the same property in the past, they still had to pass a septic, they still had to have capacity on the septic, so there's a way
For
to
the
find it.
existing, so if you wanted to add new, that's the question.
Right.
If you're trying to add
Yeah.
new bedrooms, just, there's existing septic probably can't handle it.
But I would hate to talk about this for a year and then find out there's like 3 properties
I know.
that could
This
do.
is kinda like-
So if we at least had that, like, okay, if all of the pieces fell in line, there's a maximum of this many that even exist.
That's where I'm going with it.
I mean, that was our
There-
question from
and it-
last week, but if we can't find it, we can't find, like, if
We
it
can't
is.
find-
Finding those properties, especially ones on sewer, should be real easy,
Uh-huh.
because that's not gonna be a lot.
Yeah.
And then to your point, the ones that are big enough to handle multiple properties without going with a
Mhm.
commercial
Yeah.
septic tank, that's not hard math.
I mean, there's
Yeah,
one
I think
piece
we
of
could.
property that has
Gary Brown
6
does.
short-term rentals on the same place here, and I'm
Minute.
sure they had to get inspections passed or whatnot, so like, there has to be a
Well,
way to find this.
I don't know. they could be-
Yeah, if they've been operating for long enough, then maybe not.
Nope. Some of them haven't, that's what I'm saying, like, there has to be, some maybe it's a question for,
Yeah, but there's a lot of houses out here that have short-term rentals that if you slow down, they got more people than a standard septic
Oh,
can
I'm
handle,
sure.
and they do not have a commercial septic,
right,
based off when the homes were built.
yeah, that's,
I mean, it's not easy, it's not hard to find when you drive up and down the street during the summer,
yeah.
and you see these houses that are from like 1970 with 25 cars in the
I
driveway.
know. Well, I'm just thinking maybe it's just something to ask around the office and see how, is there any way to find that
I mean, I
information, or can
I
Dr. Elko help us
go
with some of this?
count how many one house on one lot there are.
That
That would
are
give you-
like half acre or larger, because I think you can just hover over the lot, right, and it shows you the size.
I mean, I can tell you
Yeah.
at it, that all of ours are
Just
standard.
click on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so on a standard size lot, I can tell you if there's one house on a standard size lot, and whether, that would be your maximum number that you're talking about.
Yeah.
I can do that. I mean, I can just look at the map and count.
That'll be good. Anybody got anything else? Any citizen comments? No, Jenna, anything?
I make a motion to adjourn.
I
The
hear
only
you.
thing I have is the boards and commissions party. I hope we see you all on Thursday. You should have gotten an email from Wes and the email from me about it. So if you haven't, let me know. We'll get you that information. But this Thursday, you're all invited to our boards and commissions party to thank you for your service. on the
Where
Planning
is it?
Commission. It's at Father Kelly Hall.
Cool, thank you.
Okay.
All right,
All right.
adjourned.
To adjourn.
I didn't mean last week, I meant last meeting.
The Miami weather is looking a little better than
But-
Miami.
I'm driving here, that's 62 inches.
I was gonna say, I've got warehouses up there. Yeah.
not a bad house, I don't think you could ever.
I got one in Syracuse, I got one in Rochester, Hartford, Milwaukee.
Like, do you wanna, like,
I do have a question on this septic thing. So there's a house, wait, let me stop.